Guys, what's going on? This is Cole with M5X Mechanics here, and trying out a little bit different of a video. We have a 2003 M3 in here with a S54 engine, obviously, and it's in for a valve cover gasket, and we're also doing a valve adjustment here. So I wanted to make a quick little tutorial of how to shim up and do the valve lash correctly. Right now I'm working on the intake side. I've already done a lot of the front valves here. Right now I'm working on this this set of valves right here. So it's not going to be a full DIY tutorial, kind of more of like a guideline walkthrough, tips and tricks and all that type of stuff. So I actually have the Wiseco shim kit here, and then obviously you'll need a couple feeler gauges, the BMW tool here, and yeah, that's about it. It's not the hardest process. So anyways, like I said, right now I'm working on the intake side. I'm going to do one set on the intake side that I'll show you guys on camera, and then I'm also going to do one set on the exhaust side. You're not going to see every single set because the process is the same through all. So first and foremost, we want to measure here. And for the intake side, the specs are 0.18 millimeters to 0.23 millimeters. So as you can see here, I got a couple gauges here. I have 0.2, which is kind of the goal I'm going for perfect spec, because, sorry, didn't even realize you can't see them. Because 0.2 is right in the middle of 0.23 and 0.18. So if this is fitting in there with minimal play, you know, a little bit of drag, but not a whole lot, then you know you're gonna be perfectly in spec. The other one I have here is a 0.254, which is obviously out of spec because that is more than 0.23. So this is kind of my test gauge here. I've been starting with this one just to find out if they are in spec. So first things first, when you have the valve cover off, you're going to take your feeler gauge and you're going to want to go under the rocker here and the shim. So right now this is a good sign. My 0.25 feeler gauge is not fitting in there. That tells me that there's a good chance it is within spec. If this 0.25 were sliding in, that tells me it's out of spec. The gap between them is too big. So that's a good sign right off the bat. Going on the backside here, this might be a little bit harder for you guys to see, but this one is also not going in. This may not be a good example for you guys because not all of them need to be adjusted. This one is seeming pretty good so far. But obviously, we're going to need to confirm with our other feeler gauge here, which is in spec. So like I said, since this one is perfectly in the middle, just about of 0.18 and 0.23, this should slide in, you know, not necessarily with ease, but have some resistance. This one right here is literally perfect. You can see there is some slight grab, but it does fit in. So that tells me that this lobe is in spec. I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the other side here. And yeah, this one is also feeling really good. So what I can do, but it's not all that necessary, is grab other feeler gauges and kind of take a look and see if they're in spec. This one's a little loose. This one right here that I'm testing right now is a little looser than this side. So, you know, this one's probably closer to 0.19, you know, or even towards that 0.18 range. But this one I'm not going to mess with. So unfortunately, that's not the great example. So let's go ahead and move to this back one here. Same thing. I'm going to start with the 2.5. This should not fit in. If it does fit in, then that tells me we're out of spec. I just realized I need to rotate the motor over. The lobes need to be sticking up, just like you see here. That's how you know you're good to measure. So let me jump under. I got a wrench on the crank here, and we're going to rotate the motor until we get those lobes up. All right, rotate it a couple times. Let's go check. Okay, so you can see these back lobes are coming up. We need to rotate the motor a little bit more, but we're getting pretty close there. Just hopefully give you guys an idea of where they need to be. All right, there's a couple turns there. Okay, perfect. So now you can see the lobes that I was initially focusing on are facing down. These ones are facing up. That's where you want the lobes of the cam. So now let's go ahead and get back in there. This is our 0.25. And this, okay, so this one does fit in. This 0.25 does fit in. So that tells me that we're out of spec. This should not be fitting in. Granted, there is a decent amount of resistance, but this one is going to need a bigger shim in it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and do the same for this backside here. This is gonna be really hard for you guys to see, so be patient. Okay, this one is also going in. So that tells me that we're gonna need to shim both of these valves up, because obviously you can see this 0.25 is going in nice and easy there. So now I'm gonna show you guys how to remove the shims. Yeah, that should not be going in there. And then just to double confirm, if I grab my 0.2, which is in spec, this is gonna go in with ease, literally no resistance whatsoever. That just goes in there super easy. This should have some resistance. So now let's move forward with removing both the shims and the the rockers. So it's super simple. You're gonna see these clips here aligned in, and all you have to do is grab it and pull it up, just like that. You might want to take note of what direction this goes in. Set that aside. And that, as you can see, here's the top of our rocker right up there. Again, I know it's gonna be hard for you guys to see, but that releases the rocker. So now I can go in there and literally just slide it over. I don't know if you can see this right there. You can see the movement. Literally just slide that over, and that's gonna give us access. So now the rocker's kind of sitting down there in the valley, and we can get access to our shim. So that's where the BMW tool is gonna come in. You're gonna see there's a magnet on this backside here. I'm just gonna go in there right on top of the valve with that magnet and work on getting the shim out. And just like that, there's our shim. So like I said, since the 0.25 went in very easily, that tells me that we need a little bit of a thicker shim here. So I'm gonna go over here. You're gonna need a feeler gauge. I'm gonna take a quick measurement of it to see where we're at. Alrighty. Yeah, this one, we'll need to shim up. Okay, just kind of taking a mental note here. All right, so we're gonna try this 236 here. Let's see what the difference is between that. Okay, this one might be a little too thick, but I'm running out of this size here, so we're gonna have to try this one. If it is not the right size, then we'll kind of have to improvise. I'm just gonna double check these sizes here. Okay, 80, 81. Sorry, I'm talking out loud. Okay, this should actually be just the perfect size. You can see that the shims are labeled here. I'm gonna go ahead and put this label on the bottom, the number label on the bottom. So now it's just vice versa. I got my shim on my tool here. I'm going to go in there and lay the shim right on top of the valve. There is a little slot where it sits. Oh, that one didn't stay in. There is a little slot where it sits, so you will know exactly where it needs to go. All right, guys, so picking up where we left off, like I said, I accidentally dropped the shim, and it's right here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and scoop it up with the tool. But that brings up a good talking point. So I just got it. If you're working on an early model M3, I'm just gonna set that here for now while I show you guys and talk to you guys. You're gonna wanna put, you can see I kind of have some rags down here just in case. If you have an early model M3, you're gonna wanna make sure the whole entire valve train is covered with rags in case something like that does happen. On the late models though, you don't have to worry because it's gonna be hard to see, but down in the valley here, they actually implemented little screens here that protect any shims from going down into the valve train, deeper into the motor, anything like that. So because of that, this is a newer model. This is a 2003. That's why I don't have any rags or guards there, because if one does fall like I just had, you know, you'll be able to easily pick it up with a magnet. But definitely keep that in mind. If you are working on an early model, you're gonna wanna make sure you have some protective in there. So in case you do drop a shim, which is very likely, you don't make it go down in the motor. So anyways, guys, again, here's my shim. I'm gonna use the tool just to guide it to where its little place is at. Like I said, there's a little hole in there, and there we go. That one is in place. So now that you have the shim in place, you can go ahead. We're gonna grab our rocker arm here, lift it back up, and simply slide it back over like that. So now our rocker arm's back in place. We have our shim in there. Now we can go ahead with our feeler gauges and confirm the right spec for clearances there. So again, this 0.25 before you guys saw it was fitting in. Now if I try to go put it in, it is not, because we have the correct size shim in there. So that is a good sign. As you can see, I try to push it in, it's not going in. If I grab my 0.2 here, which like I said, again, is perfectly in spec, this is going to go in. Now, it does have a little bit of a grab here, but that's not a big issue because, like I said, this is 0.28. The spec is from 0.18 to 0.19. So even though this goes in and it has a little bit of drag on it, that's still going to be within spec because it's probably going to be, you know, at the 0.19 millimeter or whatever the case is. So this one is all good. Now we need to go ahead and move on to our back one here. Again, that one is going to need to be shimmed up because, like I said, if I take my 0.25 feeler gauge here, it does go in. So again, same thing. We're going to need to get a little bit of a thicker shim in there. So this is going to be the same process. I'm going to get in there with my fingers, simply lift and slide over the rocker, and that will give us access. So there it is. I know it's really dark back there, but you can see my rocker is slid over. I just realized I picked kind of the hardest one to do to decide to film, but that's all right. It is what it is. Now I'm gonna go in there and get the old shim out. Shim is on the magnet. And like I said, I'm just gonna repeat the process here. We're gonna measure the old one. We know that we're gonna need to go a little bit thicker because the 0.25 feeler gauge fit in. Okay, so we'll go 82 there. So we're probably gonna go the same size as 2.36. Yep, this is gonna be the one we want. Let's see, just double confirm. 81. And just heads up, guys, if you have a digital feeler gauge, it's gonna make it a lot more simple. Or just more accurate reading, because with this manual one, it's a little bit guessing checking. But once you do it a few times, you can get the hang of it and know how much of a bigger shim you'll need and all that type of stuff. So same thing, I have my new shim here. Gonna go in, guide it on top of the valve and to its little slot here. And just like that, it is set in place. So you can see that part's really not that tricky. Go ahead, get in here, grab my rocker arm, slide the rocker arm back into place, and remeasure. I know I'm repeating myself, but 0.25 millimeter feeler gauge should not fit in now. It was fitting in before. And yeah, not even close to getting in there. That's always a good sign. You can see the 0.2 is going in it. I think you guys can see on camera. Like I said, there's a little bit of resistance in there, but nothing alarming. So these are going to be in spec here. Same with this one right here, just to double confirm. Going in, slight resistance. So these ones, like I said, they're not gonna be perfect at 0.2. They're probably gonna be more towards 0.19 millimeters, 0.185, something like that. But again, that is in spec. So now that we have our shims replaced, it's where we want it. Let's go ahead and get our clip back in there. Again, guys, I know it's kind of hard to see, but this is a very basic, simple setup. Once you are in there doing the job, it'll make 100% sense of how these end up working. Okay, so these are all clipped in. Everything is as should be. I'm going to remove these rags here. But yeah, there we are. That is how to adjust the valve. This is intake valve, 0.18 to 0.23. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video. We'll pick it back up when I show you how to do the exhaust. Same process, just a little bit different specs to match up. Okay, guys, so moving on here to the exhaust side. I told you guys I was gonna show you, the intake side and do one on the exhaust side. So the only difference here is the specs. The specs for the exhaust side are between 0.28 millimeters and 0.33 millimeters. So I got a couple different feeler gauges here, 0.35 millimeter, 0.33 millimeter, and 0.30 millimeter. I got this 0.25 just in case, but that won't be necessary. Sorry, I just realized. So I already adjusted the first couple valves here. So you can see I got the lobes are up, and I got my 0.3. Oh, sorry, I don't want the 3.3. I want the 0.30 because this is, you know, right in the middle of 0.28 and 0.33 millimeters. So we've already adjusted this side, and you can see when I go in, it's sliding in and out, you know, not super easy, a little bit of resistance, but it does go in there. Same with this side right here, a little bit of resistance, but it does go in there. So these two are perfectly in spec. This one I actually didn't have to adjust. I only had to replace a shim on this one because it was a little bit too loose. So we put a bigger shim in that one. I'm gonna go ahead and rotate the motor, and I'm gonna show you guys the process on these next two lobes here. One thing to keep in mind, guys, that this is a slanted inline six cylinder. So the valves are not going to be directly pointed up and down. You want them straight compared to the motor. So a little bit of an angle here. So now let's go ahead and measure the lash first. I'm just going to start with this 0.35. Again, this 0.35 is out of spec, so it should not fit in there. If it does fit in, then that tells us that we need to shim it up a little bit. So far, so good on this side. 0.35 is not going in, so that's a good sign. Let's test this other one here. And same thing, not going in there. So now, let's go down to our 0.33. Technically, this should go in because it is within spec. 0.33 is the higher end of the spec, but if it does go in, it should be really, really pretty snug in there. If it's loose, then we might need to do an adjustment. That actually doesn't feel too bad because there is some resistance. We might adjust that a little bit though. And then this one, it's not even going in there. So just to double check, yeah, that's not going in. So now we're gonna go down one more. I'm thinking this one's gonna be perfectly adjusted, or not perfect, but within spec. This 0.3 is probably gonna go in with resistance. Yep, that's gonna be really good spec there. So we won't need to adjust this one. This one though, it's a little bit loose. So 0.3 is a little loose, and 0.33, there's my 0.33. Doesn't, it does go in actually. You know what? I think these are both going to be within our spec here. So this we probably won't even need to mess with. 0.3 does not go in. And the reason why I say that is because, again, if I try to do, let's just triple check, my 0.35 is nowhere near going in there. So that tells me that it's right at about 0.33. We could shim it up a little bit to get it a little tighter, but as you can see how it's kind of grabbing there, I don't think there's any need. And then just going back to my 0.3, this does feel good. I don't think it needs any adjustment. So let's go ahead and rotate the motor again, and we'll check out those lobes, see how they're feeling. All right, so again, starting with our 0.35, this should not fit in either of them. Good on that first one there. And okay, the 0.35 is semi going into this one. So we're probably gonna need to shim this one up, right? Yeah, wait, no, I was in the wrong spot there, right there. Okay, so yeah, you can see the 0.35 goes in there. So for this one, we're definitely gonna need to thicken up the shim a little bit. Here is the 0.33, just to feel how this one is. That's pretty resistant. This one's probably gonna be good. That one is even more, yeah. See how this one is a lot looser, this 0.33, compared to this 0.33 right there, where there's more resistance on it. Or it's probably hard to see, but by feel, you can definitely notice. Going in with our 0.3, which is perfectly within spec, this one's gonna be good. And yeah, this one is a little bit loose. So we're gonna get a little bit of a thicker shim for this one to get rid of some of that play here. So again, same process, pop your clip up, you know, maybe mark or note what direction that goes in. And then simply gonna go in there with my finger. Can also grab it from down here, and hopefully you guys can see that. The light might be in the way. Let me see, let me get up there. I am sliding the rocker over. So now if we look in there, you can see the rocker arm is floating. That can just go down. Grab our tool here, go in there, and you can maybe see the shim sitting on top of the valve. I can, but I don't know exactly what you guys are saying. But here's our tool, and there we are coming out with the shim right there. So hopefully that gave you guys a pretty good idea. So now we got our shim out here. We know we're gonna need to go a little bit thicker. So let me measure this out. 0.82, or sorry, 82. Talking to myself here. 82. I might not have a thicker shim than that. I think that's slightly thicker, so I might use that. Definitely not that. 81. Sorry, I'm just thinking here. Yeah. Okay, so this is probably the one that we're going to want to use. All right, so again, shim is on our tool there. Sorry, right there. Going to go into where we just removed it at. Try to show you guys again. Like I said, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Going in there with my tool. There it is. I'm literally setting it in place right now. And I'm just going to slide my tool over. And very carefully. Got it in there now. Rocker is back in place. Shim is in there. And now we can go ahead and check here. Here's my 0.3, which will be perfectly in spec. Goes in there nice and good without too much resistance. Same with this side here. Then if I step it up to the 0.33, you're gonna see that it does go in, but there is quite a bit of resistance. So that's a good sign. These two are now in spec. Now all we got to do is, again, same clip situation here. Go ahead, line it up. It connects on these rods. They literally just simply clip in. So I'm going to go ahead and line those two up. And just like that, this one is adjusted. So yeah, there you guys go. Quick little overview and process on doing a valve adjustment. I showed you an example on the intake. Unfortunately, I showed you the back hard side. And there you are with an example of the exhaust. That's what I'm going to do for today. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not doing a DIY on the valve cover or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of these valves. And yeah, thanks guys for watching as always.